Hello, this is Jeremy Sizemore with ASAP Executive Spotlight. As many of you guys know, ASAP is an SAP-focused executive search firm, talent acquisition firm. We're working in the market with large global companies, but also with SAP-focused consulting firms. And today, I have Dave Fellers and John Froelich on with me from Bramasol. Some of you guys, hopefully in the market, have heard of Bramasol. They are a West Coast headquartered SAP firm. And obviously, you're going to hear a little bit about their story and what makes them unique in the market. And we'll hear all of that today. Dave is the CEO of Bramasol and is based out of the Bay Area. And I know has been with them for many years, 17 plus years. And of course, John Froelich, SVP of Digital Services, Sales, and Strategy. And of course, John's been with them for over 13 years. A lot of stability in the leadership. Thanks for joining me today, guys.
Thank you, Jeremy. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Jeremy. Great to see you again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So let's just start out with, if you guys can, whoever would like to take a crack at the first one, but just tell us a little bit about the origin story of Bramasol, who you guys are, kind of how you fit into the SAP market.
Awesome. I'll lead the way on that. So actually, Bramasol is turning 28 years old this year. We were founded as one of the earliest reseller partners for SAP when they were working on a model to sell into the mid-market. So that's our heritage. About 20 years ago this year, John, I was just thinking about this, our current owner became our owner. Hasso Plattner, one of the 5 founders of SAP, is the owner of Bramasol, and this is 20 years this year that he's done that. That's been a great story for us. And over that time, we've continued to evolve and have become a company that's very focused exclusively on SAP and on SAP solutions, in particular in the spaces of quote to cash and Office of the CFO. And we'll be talking a lot more about that today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I love the early origin stories of how long Bramasol's been around. There's hundreds of value-added resellers in the U.S. SAP market, and there are a lot that have been around for less than 5 to 10, and you guys have been around a long time. That means there's a lot of track record there, a lot of past performance and reference checkable with a lot of companies, and that really close tie with the original founders of SAP in Germany. So I think that really sets you guys apart. Tell us just a little bit about, in the modern era, in the 2020 and beyond, what's the go-to-market strategy for Bramasol? How do you guys kind of see yourselves from a differentiation standpoint when you go to market and go talk to companies about, maybe why they should consider using Bramasol as a partner?
Absolutely. John, you want to?
Yeah, sure. No, our go-to-market strategy, Jeremy, focuses on the fact that so many companies these days are really focused in on what we're calling digital solutions or the digital economy. We're seeing more and more companies across the world move away from selling a box to selling something, anything as a service, whether it's a subscription, consumption models, all those different. And it's so far across so many different industries. It surprises me, Jeremy. Every day we meet a new company in a new industry that is selling something as a service, whether it's an automobile as a service, a medical device, a rail car. I mean, so many different things as services is amazing. And our job is really to help them sort out and understand how they can leverage SAP to enable that model, not to slow it down, not to prevent it, but really to enable that model from, like we say, quote, all the way through cash to compliance is really, where we're focused. And we add a lot of value with a very unique perspective in that space.
Love that answer. And I think you're right. It's like on my side, as just a recruiting guy, I'll hear all the different complaints that people have about different types of partners. And we're not here to call out any one company, but, sometimes there's a certain tool that fits well based on the situation. And different size companies want different types of partners. Some people want regional partners. Sometimes the special expertise that a firm brings is really what's needed at that end client. And so there's more than one variable as to why you might choose whoever it is that you end up choosing as your partner in these SAP projects. Dave, did you have anything else to join in on that?
Well, yeah, I was just going to say to what John said, and our focus is our focus. We're very passionate and dedicated to what we do, and if there is a contrast between us in terms of our go-to-market versus other providers in the space, it's just that what we do, we were doing yesterday, we're doing it today, and we're going to do it tomorrow. And a lot of times in other companies, you're kind of moving your consultant from one skill set to another, but we're dedicated to this. So.
No doubt about that. When you're doing some lots of different things or trying to be all things to all people, SAP is very complex. There's a lot going on, and so you're going to constantly have a learning curve. But if you're doing basically the same types of things over and over and over again, your best practices are really sharp and defined. And so I love what you guys bring to the table. When that brings us into, I use the term special expertise partner, and I know SAP has different certifications, and sometimes people do use that term. There's other terms for it as well. Tell us a little bit about the depth of expertise you guys have in specific areas that you're really deep and strong in, like revenue recognition and some of those other areas like BRIM that are so hot in the market today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeremy. And those are exactly the leading to our focus is on quote to cash with compliance and other aspects of Office of the CFO. And in particular, it means tools that are designed to handle complex selling models, complex contracts, and BRIM is a powerful tool for that. And it includes a subset of items. And all of that has to flow into accounting. We think about that. We have people who are conversant in that on the top end and on the bottom end, and dealing with the revenue recognition, which can be a big challenge when you have consumption or subscription or usage-based models. It's you want to sell it, provide it that way as a client, but then you got to account for it in a way that's compliant with the different rules. And so paying attention to that and leveraging SAP's tools for that is a powerful way to do that. For us to be ready to do that, we've in the early years we had to invent our own training. We had our own internal training academies. SAP in some of the spaces offers things out of their learning hub portfolio. So virtually all our people have multiple certifications, oftentimes up and down the stream. And when we work with you, because sometimes as we're growing as serving new customers, we need to bring in the best possible people, and we like them to be kind of complex contract savvy and accounting savvy as much as possible. And you help us find people that are, qualified for that, or capable of that, have that mindset. And in some cases for us, it's just a matter of upskilling them a little bit in some of the specifics of what we do. And that always helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, FICO recruiting has always been one of our most common areas. And I think of FI and CO, that's kind of that's the heart and soul of SAP. Everything goes back to the numbers and finance and accounting, and John, you have these companies that are running a more vanilla install of ECC 6.0 or S/4HANA, whatever version they're on, but it's a more vanilla version, but right. They might not use all these different bells and whistles that SAP has. We've recruited in some super niched areas around oil and gas or trade promotion management or, related to FICO. Some of these skill set areas in Treasury, Leasing, BRIM, it's not just traditional FICO. It's like a niche skill. Tell me a little bit about, for these companies that are running a more vanilla install, what kinds of problems and challenges might their finance and accounting groups be facing that looking at something like revenue and accounting recognition, RAR,
Sure.
whatever you want to call it, BRIM, looking at some of these other solutions. What kind of problems are they facing, and how could this maybe help be the solution?
Yeah, Jeremy, that's a fantastic question, because there's a lot of different challenges that customers face, in FICO. And one of them is to expand to understand what FICA contract accounting is, right? And maybe we can touch on that towards the end. But, the problems fall into a couple of categories. One of them, of course, is in finance. Part of your biggest challenge is closing those books every month. Right? You want to make sure that you're able to close quickly, accurately, and in compliance with the different regulations, whether it's GAAP, IFRS, local GAAP, all of that. And there's lots of different numbers. We can throw a million of them around, right? But it's really about how do I close quickly and accurately, and tools like SAP's revenue recognition tools, RAR, or in the cloud, you have, event-based or contract-based revenue recognition tools. But those, when linked together with your core finance, really provide a faster way to close your books. They simplify the reconciliations, and they make that so much more easy and fast, and allow you to comply in a way that maybe you wouldn't. On the opposite side, you asked a question. We were recently meeting with a big high-tech customer that we have. And he said, an interesting scenario that RevRec combined with order to cash really helps me understand is, I have a product manager. That product manager gets a report every month from the sales organization, and it says, hey, look, I sold $100 million worth of equipment. And he's all excited because he's going to get a big bonus. And then when finance reports, it says, no, actually, Jeremy, you only sold $60 million. And he's like, well, what's that all about? And of course, it has to do with how you're combining your bundles, how you're bundling products, breaking them out, assigning them, and the value that you have to accord to all of that. And when you have an integrated order to cash solution, you have insight ahead of time. So that product manager wouldn't be surprised. He would know exactly what he's come to expect and know how to react to the marketplace, right? So you have, how do I close the books faster? How do I get insights into profitability and product revenue? But also with an integrated system, so many times we see companies struggle with, how do I quickly get to market? And when you have a solution that allows you to see the impacts all the way down the stream, whether it's from when you're doing a quote to order to collection and reporting it, if I can see all of that and test it and understand it, it makes me that much faster in the marketplace. And that's why, we see more and more companies bringing the different tools of SAP, to play in that space.
Competitive advantage, speed, increased efficiency. And, even in a slower market, I think companies are cautious about where they're spending money on projects or IT projects. If you're going to spend money on something like this, it seems like it really directly ties to an ROI that you can see across the business.
Yeah. And Jeremy, you make a great point about that investment, right? And I think one of the lessons that we've learned and we're seeing over time is you don't have to do it all at once. Would we love you to do a big bang and do it all at once? Of course we would, right? But the reality is, because of the way SAP built the tools and our experience with customers, you can make an initial investment, get up and running quickly on a lot of these solutions, and then scale from there, allowing you that flexibility to, get a very quick time to value return on investment.
So John and Dave, a question that we didn't really rehearse, and I just don't know the answer to, but I want to ask real quick. So you got SAP Rise and all this, where it's hosted by SAP, and then you have products like Business by Design and, Business One. We usually play in the ECC and S/4HANA space. Do some of the things that you guys do within revenue recognition and leasing and BRIM, can that also be done in Business by Design and SAP Rise and some of the newer the new installs that we're seeing that are brand new with the mid-market? Seems to be a lot of SAP Rise in the market.
So there's a number of terms SAP will throw at you, Jeremy, but SAP Rise, there's Grow, there is Enhance. So there's different variations. Certainly a key theme within SAP is to try to move their portfolio to a cloud status, and then within that, a public edition or a private edition. And that means that when we think about things like revenue recognition or BRIM or a quote to cash, and you think about the product names BRIM and RAR, there are new product names coming along. There are maybe the cloud equivalents or that are a replacement, or they're an add-on as a part of to partner with other products. And we're definitely seeing all of that. We're seeing that direction and evolution. We partner directly with SAP. John and I were just in Dallas in a joint planning meeting with SAP on exactly these kind of topics, how to help customers with this journey, how to understand And we're very, very focused on all of that as far as the model. And then that does mean that some of the products from the past may or may not have as strong a future. SAP usually, they can give the latest guidance on who they support. But from what we see, S/4HANA as the primary ERP foundation in a cloud variation, whether it be private or public, that's going to be the foundational future. And the things that we do with quote to cash and Office of the CFO and compliance are obviously core to all of that.
Great answer, I think. And look, if anyone on this podcast is kind of newer to the SAP space, or your company is just now going towards it or evaluating SAP, yeah, you're going to have these name changes, these product name changes, like every year or two, it's something different. And, SAP makes a lot of acquisitions. They acquired Hybris, and I think it was Hybris's billing that actually evolved into what is now called BRIM. So you have to keep up with the name changes, but I think when you look at partners, you really want to know, do they understand the business processes that we're talking about?
Right.
Because if they have the deep business process knowledge, whether you call something a little different 2 years later, maybe it doesn't matter as much, but you want an expert partner that really knows what are these processes capturing and how to work with the internal customer, look at their problems, what's unique about their business, and how do we set this up, so I appreciate that. Tell me a little bit about these. A lot of times I think companies are reacting, right? And some of the things that companies react to are government regulations, right? And these companies are global, and Europe comes up with GDPR, and then there's something, US comes up with SOX compliance, and I know in particular there's IFRS 15 and FASB. Tell us just a little bit about what is that and how is it impacting companies, and then how does that tie into this SAP conversation?
Sure, I'll start on that one. So the IFRS 15 and that's the international standard. The U.S. equivalent code is ASC 606. That is the foundational revenue recognition regulation impacting the U.S. and the world. And those two bodies, the different accounting organizations, work together to harmonize the rules. They came out about 10 years ago, actually, in about 2014. Yeah. We were part of that journey right at the start with SAP, and it's because SAP responded to that by developing new software, the revenue accounting and reporting module, so to speak, called RAR, was a response to that. They therefore were leaving their SD-based RevRec model that they had used before. And definitely, these kind of regulations drive a lot of behavior and drive a lot of compliance needs. Both publicly traded companies as well as private companies with mandates to follow those accounting regulations have had to address that. There's a GASB side to some of this stuff as well, the governmental side in the U.S. For accounting, lease accounting for sure. I think it's GASB 87 matches the equivalent FASB and IFRS rules with their own variations. So there's a lot of pressure there. SAP as a company has a mindset to stay current with all of that. They do view it as an obligation that their software support their customers in staying compliant with all of these rules wherever they come from around the world. And Bramasol prides ourselves on really having gotten involved very early on in a lot of these key ones in the financial world, and helping support many customers throughout the years, hundreds in these endeavors. It's a challenge for us to keep up with the regulations and keep up with what SAP is doing and what the clients are needing, because everybody's evolving. It's a constantly changing world, and this is just one part of it. How do you go to market? How do you sell contracts and bundle those products, as John was saying? How you break down and recognize that revenue? How you get through your close quickly? And have the investor community believe and trust you. That's ultimately what these regulations were about, is creating transparency and trust with the investment community.
Yeah. And Dave's so right. IFRS 15 and ASC 606 were just the first step. Then you came out with the leasing. You mentioned that earlier on, Jeremy. About, and again, it's transparency, right? That came out of the need for more transparency about what are you truly leasing, because people kept that off the books, and all of a sudden, you're trying to value companies, and well, where did all of this lease obligations came from? So they moved in that same direction. I think something that we see coming up that Dave has encouraged me and our team to look at is, what about sustainability and green and carbon accounting? That I think is going to come out. I would expect to see similar kinds of ongoing evolution of requirements. And if you think about also, how does that relate to order to cash and revenue recognition? Well, if you're bundling and you're looking at your different bundles and how much you sell of different things, each one might have a different carbon accounting implication. So, thinking about that more holistically and understanding that, is a future for, where you're going. So, I think it's, Jeremy, to your point, it never stops evolving. We constantly see updates, and, our job as, Dave and I like to say as revenue accounting and order to cash nerds, if you will, is, staying on top of it and understanding what it means for your business.
Quick question on this topic. So CIOs oftentimes have SAP and it's viewed as an IT thing, but the CFOs, the directors of FP&A, controllers, and different executives that are in the finance and accounting group are very involved in these decisions, and SAP is solving a lot of their problems. They're the user. When people hear a video podcast like this, whether they're a CIO or an IT leader, or whether they're a finance and accounting leader, if they are having these kinds of challenges and problems and need a consultative call, or want to just kind of do a reach out, obviously they're probably running SAP, or they've recently selected SAP. But do you guys take those kinds of consultation calls from both types of categories of people, not just IT leaders, but also finance and accounting executives?
Oh yeah,
absolutely. I'd say, John, you personally have handled hundreds of calls with all sorts of people. Revenue recognition in particular. Sorry, John, revenue recognition in particular. When you're dealing with SAP, you're involving the IT organization because this is a foundational software element for a corporation. But revenue recognition is an accounting topic as well. And it's not just your accountants and some people doing revenue recognition. There's accounting policy, which means then maybe there's auditors, maybe there's internal audit as well as external. And so there can be board influences on how we want to treat revenue, because this is an important question. How is your coming in to treat revenue? It touches a lot of people. And so we get a lot of questions on that. And we'd love to talk to anyone about that and their unique business models and what they need to consider. And then how SAP can help, because SAP really is a great product for dealing with far more complex business models that corporations around the world are facing and trying to introduce.
That's right. Yeah, and Dave and John will both be tagged in this video podcast. You'll see who they are, and they're on LinkedIn. Obviously, Bramasol.com. If you can do reach outs and reach out to John and set up conversations. So I really appreciate where you guys are coming from. So just kind of shifting to this big world of SAP that we all live in, and you have systems implementation partners, and you've got the big four, or big five, whichever you want to call it. And people know who some of these huge companies are, right? And then there's even what we would call tier 2 and tier 3 SI partners, and there's mid-sized partners, and there's smaller, more regional partners, or special expertise partners. Do you guys are you primarily a prime, like the SI that's driving the entire SAP implementation? Do you come in more as a sub or a specialty partner working in conjunction with another firm, or is it like a mix of those kinds of scenarios?
It can be a mix, and I will say for myself, in my years before Bramasol, I've worked at a couple of those big SIs. Bramasol, with our specialized focus, does very often work with clients directly to implement the functionality in the quote to cash and compliance spaces, and lease accounting, treasury accounting, different things that we've done. We're hired directly. Sometimes companies like to do as much as they can in-house, and they look at us as a specialty, advisor, playing kind of that kind of role, as opposed to really owning the full project and maybe just helping them along in a more specific focused way, almost like a lawyer or something like that. And then, but we're flexible and we'll work with the big SIs as well. And there are companies where the approach is for us to partner, either work side by side or partner with, or work on behalf of a larger SI, especially in, if you think about Fortune 500 global S/4HANA transformations, those are going to have some of the biggest names usually driving that. But it's hard for them to do it all. And topics like BRIM and revenue recognition have a lot of complexity to them. And if you're kind of trying to chase too many things with generalists, you need some focus in those areas, and you don't want to get BRIM wrong, because that's driving your selling engine and how you're capturing things. And you certainly don't want to get revenue recognition wrong, because that can lead to SEC and other problems.
Over the years, Dave, we've always, we see the big fives and the big boys, and everybody knows who they are. But in areas like EWM and IBP on the supply chain side, we've always seen like these really niche partners that ended up kind of, I don't want to say totally cornering that little space, but where it's a lesser known company, but they would have most of the deep experts in the whole country that were IBP would be at this one company, ABC company over here. And IS Retail and Fashion Brands was similar. It had, there was companies out there that were branded that way, and that's what they did, and they did it really well. And there's so many like super niched areas within SAP. And I've thought of Bramasol always on the side of revenue recognition, BRIM, Treasury. Some of these areas can get pretty niche. And I see companies will sometimes just try to hire a generic FICO person. And that's probably the closest to it if you're going to try to just train someone up. But they don't always have all the skills if you're going to get into a BRIM project, if you're going to get into a revenue recognition project. And so that's where I think you really want to look at partners that have demonstrated history of success, and they have the in-house expertise. These are the ones that are speaking at conferences. I know Bramasol, I know that you guys are generally at any big SAP conference in the country, whether it's Sapphire. It looks like you guys are coming up on a Vegas conference. John, you want to tell us a little bit about SAP Insiders, what you guys are going to be doing there?
Yeah, sure. Fantastic. Thanks, Jeremy. We're going to be at Insider. We'll have a pavilion there, so come by, check it out. But Dave and I will be teaming up on a presentation that will talk about order to cash and to compliance. But we'll also be throwing in a little bit of everybody's favorite topic, which is something I'm sure you're going to ask about in a minute, which is AI, right? And AI needs to be powered by an engine that gives it the intelligence, so that the artificial intelligence can go in and do its thing. So, we're very excited. It's going to be on Wednesday, starting at 4:30 at the beautiful Bellagio Hotel. So if you're going to be at Insider, check us out, because I think you'll get a lot of great insights from, Jeremy. We've done 100 different RAR projects. We've done a number of them that have fully integrated BRIM. We've been successful in several treasury projects and integrating RAR and BRIM to them. So, come ask we used to say, bring your hardest problem, bring your hardest question, and we'll be there to answer it. So
that's right. Go meet up with these guys in Las Vegas. That's coming up in, I think, the third week of March. Maybe it's the 21st to the 23rd, but it's somewhere there in late March, correct?
It's the 18th through the 21st.
18th to the 21st. So you guys make sure, stop by, see John Froelich and Dave Fellers. Go watch their presentation if you can get to their room wherever they're presenting. And if you saw this podcast, say that you saw them talking on the ASAP Executive Spotlight. So I really appreciate that. We'll wrap up with this. Is there, if you just think about the future, if you could give us a sneak peek, don't say anything you can't share, but how do you see Bramasol evolving over the next 3 to 5+ years, Dave? Anything you give us on sneak peek of what you guys might be getting more into, or how the company might look in the future?
Thanks, Jeremy. And we actually touched upon a couple of those items, so I'm not going to be sharing any secrets, but clearly a global concern that all of us have for our planet and sustainability concepts and what that means on all levels, a responsibility will exist in corporations and governments, and they're going to want to leverage systems like SAP, which is building for that need. And some of the things that will fall right into our lap will be around things, topics like carbon accounting. And that ability to measure and track the impact. So that certainly is a big theme over the next 3 to 5 years that will grow and grow. The continuous move to a public cloud-based software solutions and having the richness of functionality and versatility to support companies is going to continue to be a big push. And as John just said, artificial intelligence, it's in its early stages. How software can be used to ease the lives of people and companies and employees. I personally think this is going to help us do more things better and be something that helps economies and companies perform, not something that'll be negative for us as workers. And I think software has to be the heart of all of that. And as that impacts the areas that we work in, it'll be a key part of what Bramasol does.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you so much for your time and energy today, coming on and giving some expertise to the audience on the things that you guys are really strong at there at Bramasol. I really appreciate your time. I hope that, for those that are watching this that find this subject interesting or have some questions or comments, feel free, drop some notes down in the comments underneath the podcast itself. And, maybe we can go back and forth and keep the conversation going. Really appreciate it, and hope that you guys will join us on a future ASAP Executive Podcast. Thanks a lot, Dave Fellers and John Froelich from Bramasol.
Thank you, John.